Some of Rosen's disdain was directed toward Logan herself, who sometimes champions wars and other causes that he opposes. Some of his disdain was directed at members of the Western media, who routinely remain silent in the face of attacks on journalists and on women who aren't white. But the backlash against Rosen came swiftly, even from his own family. None of his justifications ultimately made any difference. Within a day, he had resigned his fellowship at New York University's Center on Law and Security. He writes, "With 480 characters, I undid a long career defending the weak and victims of injustice. There's no excuse for what I wrote." He adds, "Like most men, I need to be better educated and far more sensitive to the suffering of women and victims of sexual abuse." Without question, Rosen has gotten the mother of all wake-up calls. When one of the good guys can get it so badly wrong, it's a sign that we have a long way to go. And when it comes to at least some of our most cherished values, we're moving in the wrong direction. No matter what you care about, you've gotten the mother of all wake-up calls. In his poem titled "To Be a Danger," the contemporary American poet C.G. Hanslacek writes, "Just once I'd like to be a danger to something in the world, be hunted by cops, and forced into hiding in the mountains, since if they left me on the streets, I'd turn the country around, changing everyone's mind with a word. But I've lived so long a quiet life, in a world I've made small, that even my own mind changes slowly. I'm dangerous only to myself, like the daydreaming night watchman smoking his cigar near the dynamite shed." My sense is that there's been a lot of daydreaming going on in our world. I've certainly done my share of it. Truth be told, it's easier to live a quiet life in a small world than it is to confront the vast challenges that threaten our nation and roil our world. It's easier to smoke cigars or while away time in other self-destructive ways than it is to risk making a difference. The problem is that we're loitering near the dynamite shed, and things are starting to go boom. The call is to be a danger to something in this world. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to politicians who believe the rich should get richer, even if that means the poor keep getting poorer. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to religious zealots whose God demands that women submit to the authority of their husbands in all things. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to the so-called scientists who believe global warming is a myth and evolution is a fairy tale. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to oligarchs masquerading as capitalists and autocrats masquerading as democrats. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to people who think all forms of government are bad and all uses of freedom are good. Unless, of course, you happen to be a worker in Wisconsin. Just once, I'd like to be a danger to fundamentalists who believe their God is uniquely true, and to pluralists who believe that all forms of faith are equally valid. Just once, I'd like to be a danger. Just once. In his 1947 essay titled "The Prophethood of All Believers," the renowned Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams writes, "A church that does not concern itself with the struggle in history for human decency and justice is not a prophetic church." He adds, "In a prophetic church, all members share the common responsibility to attempt to foresee the consequences of human behavior, both individual and institutional, with the intention of making history in place of merely being pushed around by it." Here at All Souls, we embrace this prophetic imperative when we proclaim in our statement of strategic direction, "We will become a prophetic congregation whose members embody the theological imperative to heal the brokenness within our own lives, in our community, and in our world." Put simply, this is a commitment to be a danger. "If I were a danger," the poet says, "they'd come hunting for me. Since if they left me on the streets, I'd turn the country around, changing everyone's mind with a single word." In other words, I might be like Gene Sharp, a shy and retiring man from East Boston, whose practical writings on nonviolent revolution serve as a playbook for dissidents around the world. The New York Times describes him as stoop-shouldered and white-haired at 83. He grows orchids, has yet to master the internet, and hardly seems like a dangerous man. But for the world's despots, his ideas can be fatal. He has authored a 93-page guide to toppling autocrats, now available for download in 24 languages, as well as a paper titled 198 Methods of Nonviolent Action. He insists that peaceful protest is best not for moral reasons, but because violence provokes autocrats to crack down. If you fight with violence, Sharp says, you're fighting with your enemy's best weapon, and you may be a brave but dead hero. Sometimes the pen is mightier than the sword and more dangerous. You can also spend money dangerously. The U.S. consumes about 20 million barrels of oil each day, 70% of which is used for light transport, cars, pickup trucks, and the like. Put differently, if all the cars and pickups in the U.S. instantly switched from gas to electric, our oil consumption would plummet from 20 million barrels a day to 6 million barrels. Here's the kicker. We already produce enough electricity to recharge all those cars and pickups each night, when we have excess electric capacity that now gets dissipated as heat. Electric cars are a danger, to the big gas stations in the Middle East. My charge to you this morning is a simple one. Go figure out how to be a danger. Here on this exotic little island off the coast of North America, we've been extraordinarily blessed. It's easy to become complacent, and in so doing, become a danger not only to ourselves, but also to the values we cherish and the goals we pursue. It's time to rouse ourselves again. Our prophetic imperative insists that we change minds and change the world. As Dorothy Day says, no one has a right to sit down and feel helpless. There's too much work to do. It's time to be a danger. Amen. I love you. May God bless us all.